Hey guys, James here.
And this is Andres. Recently we asked you guys to put your creativity to the test by sharing your unique ideas for fresh new Mario Kart items. We received hundreds of responses, but promised to narrow the results down to our top 10 favorites. Winners were chosen based on several factors, including originality, inventiveness, and a realistic balance.
Many of you actually had very similar ideas, but for those repeat items, we chose the best entry based on either a slight upper hand in creativity or simply more clarity in their description. We'd like to also quickly mention that it was a very close race. There were a buttload of great entries and no clear winners right off the bat. Even the top 10 winners were hard to organize into a list because they were all good ideas. So be sure to stay tuned for the honorable mentions, but for now, here are the top 10 new Mario Kart item ideas.
An item that surprisingly hasn't made it into the series yet, the Ice Flower works similarly to the Fire Flower, with obvious differences of course. Rather than flames, Savage Blaze explains that the player will throw out balls of ice, momentarily slowing down other racers. The more ice that collides with an opponent, the more their wheels will freeze and the slower they'll drive until melted.
SD's idea is simple, but one of a kind. More likely to pop up when falling slightly behind, the special crown will maximize all of the player's stats. Speed, acceleration, weight, handling, they'll all be at their best for a short period of time. You can turn those sharp corners with ease, pick up in speed, and it'll finally give the little guys a chance to push back at their larger rivals.
As Zach describes it, the Cloud Shroom basically acts as one of these blue boosting ramps on the go. When activated, it'll boost the player into the air on a cloud, allowing them to dodge opponents and ground level attacks while slowly paragliding back down. It's a single-use item, as opposed to 3 times like in Mario Galaxy 2, but could provide the escape you need at just the right time to avoid chaos below.
Scaredy Rat is a sneaky little devil. Once activated, this little guy will scurry ahead, targeting the nearest racer like a red shell. If he reaches an opponent, he'll sit in their item slot and either wait about 10 seconds for them to receive an item, or steal the one they've already got. Mr. Melon compares his idea to the Boo item, stating that instead of bringing the item back to the player who released him, Scaredy Rat will simply steal the item for himself and be on his merry way. A bit of a nuisance, really.
Speaking of nuisance, remember these guys? When activated, a Chuck Yell will spawn ahead of first place and proceed to move toward oncoming racers, following the track for about 30 seconds before detonating. Racers be warned, those who fail to dodge the approaching menace will be picked up and tossed back a short distance, just like in Super Mario 64. Players with mushrooms will find themselves lucky, as the Chuck Yell will be easier to avoid with speed. However, aside from stars, bullet bills, and lightning, it's completely invulnerable to most other items. Proceed with caution.
Similar to its use in Super Mario 3D World, Das Peter explains that the double cherry will create a copy of the player, acting as a CPU close by. Opponents will be unable to tell the difference between the real player and the decoy, forcing them to take a chance on one of the two when attempting to strike them with an item. This gives the player a 50% chance of avoiding attacks. The clone will disappear after a short time, or when hit by an enemy item. The item works well as a distraction, but does still leave the player vulnerable, creating a reasonable balance for players in 3rd to 6th place range.
Because both their answers were quite similar and also quite good, we've awarded both these contestants 4th place. Navi and Takashi paint a brilliant picture of how Kamex Wand could work in a race. Players who receive this item will have 3 chances to cast a spell on an opponent, or fire out projectiles that'll appear as the magic shapes that often emit from Kamex Wand. The spells will move in a straight line, so they're avoidable but very hazardous. When hit, racers would be affected by one of several curses: inverted controls, an out-of-control camera, temporary paralysis, or getting launched into the air. An imaginative idea for sure. Clearly, great minds think alike.
Mr. Blizzard is no stranger to the Mario Kart series, as seen in Nintendo 64, but Mr. brings him back in a new way. This aggressive snowman could be thrown or set down like a banana peel, as we see in these awesome visuals created by Mr. himself. Once settled, Mr. Blizzard will simply stay put on his little snow mound. Avoidable, but dangerous, even more so than banana peels. If hit by Mr. Blizzard, players will immediately freeze, sliding like ice in the direction they were moving without losing momentum. Players will be unable to regain control for several moments. He may be small, but Mr. Blizzard sure packs a cold punch.
Depending on your perspective, this item from the new Super Mario Bros. Series could either be useful, comical, or frustrating. When activated, the player will be surrounded by a protective bubble. It'll act as a shield, guarding the player from any item, including the blue shell, but will pop after one hit. It's pretty beneficial, but here's the catch. If the bubble isn't popped after 10 to 20 seconds, the player will float off into the air, only to be saved by Lakitu after several moments. Fortunately, Reese explains, the bubble can be passed on to another racer by colliding with them, similar to that obnoxious lightning cloud in Mario Kart Wii.
The Mario and Luigi series are often unrepresented in 3D Mario games. Monkey Man changes that with the Shroob Communicator, a device used to call down a Shroob UFO. He explains that this aircraft will hover above the player's head, defending them from incoming projectiles and item hazards for a short time. The Shroob UFO will neutralize enemy items by either shooting them with his laser gun or abducting these items using a beam of light. The spacecraft would last for about 10 seconds before leaving, and would protect the player against all items aside from heavy hitters like stars, blue shells, or items still being held by other racers. Not too overpowered, but certainly a valuable gift for those struggling to keep up.
Congratulations to the top 10 winners. Now here are the top 20 honorable mentions. Huge thank you to everybody who participated in this contest. If you enjoyed this video, please help us out by giving it a like or sharing it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to Erickson Gaming for more contests, as well as tournaments, discussions, live streaming, and much more video game content. This has been Andres and James Erickson. Thanks for watching.